form, they give them money, and now their name's going to be on the ballot. But we can only have one Republican candidate. Just one. How do you figure out who gets on the ballot if there's more than one Republican choice? That's why we have the primary. You understand? So these guys go into the primary election. It's just a process of elimination. Now what we try to do as Republicans is we'll say, wait a second, we're the Republicans. These two might be nice people. They might be good people. We might like them, but they're not our choice. We chose the person we endorse. So we have the primary election, and let's say you get 80% of the vote, you get 15, you get 5. You two can go sit down. Thank you. Robert just won the primary election. So his name goes on. He is the only Republican candidate for governor in November. You understand how that works? That's why we have a primary election. Now, let's say, come on up here. Let's just, Democrat. Yes, here's Lane. Democrat. Okay, if we only have one Democrat, if this is the only Democrat candidate that we have, is she going to have a primary challenge? No. Will her name be on the ballot for the primary? Yes, they put her name on there anyways. But she won't have a challenge. She will go right from the primary. Well, this is what she needs to do. She needs to go to the primary election and vote for herself. She has to have one vote. So please go and vote for yourself, okay? She will automatically be on the general election ballot. Now, if we had two others, if you were endorsed and you two were not, and you wanted to be on the ballot, then there would be just like we did with the Republican side. That's why we have a primary election. Any questions? JJ. Thank you.
As a voter, do I have to register as Republican before I went to primary election?
No. Some states you must register your political party. Illinois, you have to register as a Republican voter or as a Democrat voter. In Minnesota, you do not. When you show up for the primary election on August 14th to vote in the primary, and all of you will, right? Yeah, okay. That's very important that you do. No, I'm going to cover that right now. When you vote in the primary election, you will not be registered as a Republican or as a Democrat. You will walk into the election, okay, and you will be given one ballot. On one side of the ballot, it will be the Republican candidates. On the other side of the ballot, it will be the Democrat candidates. You can only vote one side. If you vote for, in the Republican side for the governor, let's say you like Jeff Johnson, who I like, let's say you vote for Jeff Johnson for the Republican primary, that's your guy. But let's say for another race over here, let's say for Secretary of State, you vote for the Democrat on this side, you've just spoiled your ballot. It will not count it. You can only vote one side in the primary. One side in the primary. General election, you can cross over all you want. But in the primary election, you have to vote one political party. Any questions? Yeah, I'm sorry, JJ.
So on the ballot, we'll see all the candidates?
Yes.
All
of the candidates will be on the ballot for every candidate will be on the ballot.
And there are positions there, right?
Yep, the positions will be there as well. All of the governor candidates, the Democrats have like 4 teams, or 4 or 5.
Yeah.
I think the Republicans have 3 or 4. Yeah, 3. I have 3 people challenging me in the primary. 3. So you'll see my name and then 3 others. One guy, his name is Rocky. He lives in California. He's registered in 3 other states. Okay? And then there are 2 other people that always... Here's the beautiful thing about America. If you want to run for something, you can. You can. It doesn't mean that you're going to work very hard, because the two other people that are running against me have really nice Scandinavian last names, Anderson, Merrill, and Ray. But they're not doing anything. They're not working very hard. They got a Facebook page, I think. But regardless, I have to win. I have to beat these other three so that I can be the Republican choice in the ballot on the general election in November. You understand? And the same thing will happen with the Democrats. They too have to go through the same process, because you can only have one candidate for every major party, every political party. You can only have one in the general election in November. You can have one Democrat, you can have one Republican, you can have one Green Party, you can have one Independence Party. Each political party only gets one candidate, one. And the way that they come down to one choice is everyone gets eliminated in the primary on the 14th. That's why it's so important that you vote in the primary on the 14th. Do you know what voter turnout is in Minnesota for the primary elections? Do you know what percentage it usually is?
20%.
It's under 10%. Under 10% of the eligible voters in Minnesota choose who's going to be that guy or that gal on the ballot in November. Vote in the primary. I cannot stress that enough. Before you leave, don't let me forget, I'm going to put these out on the table. We have voter registration cards. If you've never registered to vote, if you have not registered to vote, please take one of these home with you. It takes 1 minute to fill out. And then you fold it up. You don't even need a stamp. All you've got to do is fold it up, put it in the mailbox. This will go to the Secretary of State's office in St. Paul. They will send this to your precinct, and your name will be on the list. So on voting day for the primary or voting day for the general election in November, you can walk into your precinct and say, my name's Jeff. Here's my, you don't have to show your ID anymore. In Minnesota, you don't need an ID. That's a whole other argument, okay? But all you got to do is show up and say, hey, here I am, and they look on the list, your name's on the list. Guess what? You get to vote. It's that easy. If you don't register beforehand, if you don't register before the election, you can register the very same day. If you want to show up and vote, you can register right there when you vote. You'll need some ID though to register on the same day. You'll need to bring ID. So I'm gonna give these. Jeff, you want to put these on the table outside? If you have not registered to vote, take one of those home with you. Take 1 minute to fill it out and mail it. If you forget, it's okay. You can register on election day, or you can vote early and register then too. It's very easy to vote. Here.
You don't necessarily need ID, but you have to have somebody to vouch for you.
Yeah.
You are saying who you are.
Yeah. If you register on election day, you'll need someone to vouch for you that says yes, you are who you are and you live where you live. But you can make it very easy and just go ahead and register. Just fill out a form. JJ, you look like you have a question.
Yeah, but if you are like me, I already went to general election in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have to register again?
No. Once you are registered to vote, you are good for the rest of your life, unless you move.
Quit voting.
Yeah, that's true. Right. If you move or quit voting, your name will always stay on the register. If you move, you change your address, you need to re-register, because they need to know where you are. Any questions on this? Yeah. To go vote early, go to the county. Go to your county government center. City Hall. You should be able to do it there too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What county do you live in, Frank? Ramsey? You know what? If you go to the county government center, where the courts are, and you walk in and you tell them you want to early vote, they'll show you where to go. They'll give you a ballot. You can early vote. You could early vote tomorrow if you want to. There was another question over here. Yeah.
Yes, just so if we want to make our Chinese American voice like louder,
Mm-hmm.
should we all like register in one part and vote for one candidate?
You can. I'm sorry. You can what now?
So to make our Chinese voice louder,
Yeah.
so should we register in one party and then vote for one candidate?
You don't register for a political party. When you show up to vote in the primary, you choose the party you want to vote for in the primary. You can choose to vote for the Republican side or the Democrat side. Because remember, the primary election is just a process of elimination. The primary election takes 3 choices down to 1, or 5 choices down to 1. Okay? The primary election is the only purpose of the primary is to get it down to 1 choice for each political party. Okay? You don't have to. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to vote. I would like you to vote Republican because I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative, and I think that I've got some really strong arguments to convince you to vote for me, and I hope you do. But at the end of the day, you are your own man, and I want you to make your own decision. I'm going to try to influence that. I'm going to try to, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to tell you how to vote. You're going to have to choose. And I hope you choose according to your values. And if your values line up with my values, then I'm your guy.
When they're registering, you're not registering as a political party.
Right.
Which side you're on.
Yeah, when you register,
Vote is all.
when you register, you don't tell them what party you're with. JJ, you got one?
Yeah, I have another question. Sorry. So, I know you're running for federal level.
Yes, U.S. Senate.
Right, U.S. Senate. And then Robert is running for Minnesota, right?
Robert's running for the Minnesota House.
Right. So,
State.
yes. So you have, Robert has, I don't know, what do you call it, a district?
He has 40, his district has 40,000 people.
So, right, so can we vote Robert?
You can only vote for Robert if you live in his district. You have to live in his district. I think most of you here, probably half of you live in Randy Jessup's district. Most of you probably live in Randy's district. If you vote for the person whose district you live in, and that's why we have the map back there. I'll take one more question I want to cover to the top. Go ahead.
Can you register online?
Can you, I don't know if you can register. You might be able to. Secretary of State, check out the Secretary of State's website. You might be able to. I think you can.
To have this on the computer.
Yep.
Phones, so the people who are campaign workers, the people who are called.
Yeah. So let me.
I'm not sure how they're doing it.
I want to be really quick here on how are laws made. I want to tell you. There are two things in, though there's a lot of truth in that. There are 2 things in life you never want to watch being made. Try to be quick. I'm going to be very respectful of your time because I know we're getting late. All right. You want to make, how is a law? How do we make a law? The conventional way, the traditional way that we make a law is this. You make a law that says only have pens that work. Okay. You have an idea. Okay? You have an idea. You say, this idea is a good idea, it should become a law. What do you do with that idea? Let's say you want, whatever it is. What do you do with it? The first thing you want to do is you want to find someone who has the legal authority to make your idea a bill. Let me say that one more time. You want to find someone who has the legal authority to turn your idea into a bill. You need a state senator or a state rep. One of the two. You need one of the two. Hopefully you get one of each. But at a minimum, you need a state representative to say, your idea, you come to me, this is your problem, you would like this to become law. I take your idea, I go to a research department, which is what we have. All good legislators will do this. They will go to a research department and they will say, I want you to research this idea. I want you to find out, first of all, is it already a law? Why pass a law if we already have it? Or does this idea, has this been tried before and has the federal government said no? Or what are our options? You'll go to a research department, and we have those at the Capitol. They will research your idea, they will come back and they will say, yep, it's a good idea, we'll make it a bill. So I will get a piece of paper, I'll get a bill, okay? And what I will do is I will submit that bill to the Minnesota House, because that's where I serve, okay? That bill will go to the Minnesota House, and they will read the bill the first time. It gets what's called its first reading. And they will read the bill and they'll say, this bill is, let's say it's a public safety bill. Let's say it has something to do with the police. This bill, they'll read it, the staff will read it, they'll say, it touches on public safety, it spends money, and it also has something to do, let's say, with, let's say farming. Let's say it's a public safety bill that has to deal with farming as well. So they'll say, okay, we got this bill, it covers these 3 areas, so it's got to go to 3 committees. It's got to go to the Agriculture Committee, it's got to go to the Public Safety Committee, and it's got to go to the Ways and Means Committee, because that's where the money gets spent. So the first stop is it goes to the Agriculture Committee. The bill goes to the Agriculture Committee, and there will be members from both parties on that committee that they'll read the bill, and they will argue the bill, and usually the author of the bill, let's say it's my bill, I'll be there to present it, I'll be there to argue on behalf of it. I might even bring some of you down with me to St. Paul to testify and say this is a good bill. And in the committee, what they will do is they will vote. The Agriculture Committee will vote whether to pass it or not. But there's something that they can do in the Agriculture Committee as well. They can change the bill. Let's say Marvin, Robert Marvin here, is a member of the Agriculture Committee, and he says, great bill, great idea, but you know what, there's something else we should add to this. He will write an amendment, and they can put an amendment onto that bill in the Agriculture Committee. Suddenly my bill just got changed a little bit, sometimes a lot. They pass it out of the Agriculture Committee, it goes to the next committee, Public Safety. It's a public safety bill. Public Safety will look at it, and they'll argue about it. We'll bring in our witnesses. And maybe Mary here is a member of the Public Safety Committee, and she says, you know, good bill, I like what it says, but you know what, we need to change it a little bit. I want to add something to it. She can put an amendment on if it gets voted on, and change it again to the amendment. After it passes Public Safety, let's say the bill spends some money. Let's say the bill requires money to be spent. It's got to go to the Ways and Means Committee, what we call Ways to be Mean Committee. It goes to the Ways and Means Committee. They're the ones that decide, are we going to spend the money? Is the money in the checkbook to make this happen? Once it's in the Ways and Means Committee, let's say Elaine is a member of the Ways and Means Committee. She can change it in there too. She can change it a little bit. Let's say she decides she wants to change it. She can. So it passes. At any point, this bill could die. If a bill doesn't pass a committee, it's done. It's done. Once the bill passes all of its committees, it goes to the House floor. Remember, it had the first reading. It was read the first time. It went to the committees. The committees changed it a little bit, but they all passed it. Now it goes to what's called the second reading, and it's read on the House floor. After we read it the second time on the House floor, anyone in the legislature, in the House of Representatives, any one of the 134 members of the Minnesota House can change it, can amend it there too. Okay? It can get amended on the floor. It can be changed. After the second reading, and if it gets amended, sometimes they don't, sometimes they do. After it's amended, then it goes to what's immediately called third reading. we go immediately from second reading to third reading. At the third reading, a bill cannot be amended. It can't be amended at third reading. Then the bill passes or it fails. Now a bill, remember now, a bill could die in committee. It might not pass in the committees. It might not pass on second reading. It might not pass on third reading. It's very difficult to make law. That's why the law is strong. If it was easy to make law, then the law would have no strength. Yeah.
So who voted on the third reading?
Everyone in the legislature, all 134 members of the legislature, of the Minnesota House, will vote for that. And I want you to remember this. Go ahead.
How many layers from the year already to the layers?
How many layers? Well, it depends on how many committees it has to go to. So you have your idea, right? It becomes a bill. The bill gets submitted. It gets its first reading, which they say, here's the bill. The bill gets assigned to the committees that it touches on. Some bills only go to one committee. Some bills go to 6 committees. The more complicated a bill is, the more committees it will go to. And in any committee, a bill can be changed, and in any committee, a bill can die. So let's say it goes to the third reading, you need a simple majority. Well, for most bills, we need a simple majority. There's some bills we need a supermajority, 2/3. But let's say you pass the bill after the third reading, and it passes through the Minnesota House. Is it a law? No, it's not. That's just one rub. Because remember, our government is this. We have the Minnesota House, okay? And we have the Minnesota Senate. But the bill passes, first reading, committees, second reading, third reading. It passes through the House, okay? But what happened over here in the Senate? Now, there's a couple of things that can happen. We can send this bill as it is to the Senate and say, please, 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 please read this bill and pass it. How often do you think that happens? Yeah. You're right, it doesn't happen very often. Usually what happens is that the exact same bill will start in the Senate and it will go through the very same process. It'll have the first reading. It'll go to committees. It'll have second reading and third reading. And any point in this process, the Senate can change that bill too. So let's say we have a bill that goes through the House, the same idea, goes through the Senate, and it passes in the House, we'll put P for pass, and it passes through the Senate. And if there are no changes, none, it's what we call a clean bill. We don't see those very often. Sometimes we'll get a clean bill where leadership will say, this is our bill, don't mess with it. Okay? Sometimes we hear that, not very often. But we will get what's called a clean bill. If it has not been changed on the House, and it has not been changed in the Senate, and it passes both House and the Senate, then we vote on it, we pass it, and it goes to the governor, who can sign it into law or veto it. He can say, sorry guys, don't like it, veto, boom. Now we have it can get sent back to us, we can override the veto, but we need a 2/3 majority to do it. We need a 2/3 majority. It's got to be done in the House and in the Senate. That's the basic way that things happen. Now, let's just say this. We have the Minnesota House. We get a bill, we get the idea, right? And it becomes a bill, and we have the same bill in the Senate, right? First reading, committees, second reading, third reading, passage. It gets passed, right? Exact same bill goes through the Senate. First reading, committees, second reading, third reading, and it gets passed. But it gets changed. Let's say some ideas get added onto it here in the process. It's not the same bill as the Senate bill. What do? This is what happens. We pass one version, it's called the House version, HV, and then there's the Senate version. The idea is roughly the same. But what the senators did, their changes to the bill, is different from what the representatives did with their changes to the bill. You've got two bills that both cover the same idea, but they don't say the same thing. Do we have a problem? We do. So what happens is, we will appoint what's called a conference committee. Conference committee. The Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate will appoint the conference committee. He'll take sometimes up to 5 representatives, 3 to 5 representatives, and there'll be 3 to 5 senators. We'll take these 5 representatives, and we'll take these 5 senators, and we say, you senators take your Senate version of the bill, and you go sit down at this table, and you representatives take your House version of the bill, and you go sit down at the table with the senators, and you don't come out until you have one bill that says the exact same thing. That's conference committee. Can a bill get amended in conference committee? You bet. When people say when decisions are being made behind closed doors, that's where that tends to happen. You can have a bill that goes through the Senate, gets changed, and a bill that goes through the House, it gets changed, and here it goes into conference committee, and they're supposed to come up with one bill that says the same thing, so it can go back to the House, and we can approve it, and go back to the Senate so they can approve it. And once that's done, it goes back to the governor, who then can veto it or pass it. In conference committees, when they're trying to work out the differences, that's where, let's say, Robert Marvin's is a conferee in the Senate. Let's say he's on that conference committee. And he had a bill that died, he had a different bill that died somewhere in this process. He's kind of mad. But he's a conferee. He can take his bill and offer it as an amendment in conference committee, and it can get adopted into the final bill for the law. You think people get kind of frustrated with that? You bet they do. I know I do. I've seen it happen many, many times. Any bill can be changed at any time with an amendment, which is what we tried to do with data disaggregation. When the education bill came up, I offered an amendment during second reading to try to get that. We weren't able to get it through. We had to pull it, but we were able to start the discussion. Sometimes it takes a few years to get things moving. But that's how that works. I know this is confusing. I know there's a lot there. But this is the basic principle of how it works. You guys are the House. You've got an idea. You have a bill. You run it through your committees. You guys in front had to change things. Thanks a lot. You changed it. But you all voted for it. You got your House version. You guys are the Senate. You had the same bill, same idea. You ran it through the Senate. These people here had to change things. Thanks a lot. This bill that you passed is different from the House bill, even though it's the same idea. Now you 5 and you 5 take your versions of the bill and vote. You're supposed to vote. Come back with one bill that says the same thing for the Senate and the House, and then you pass it. Chen.
Does the bill always goes through House first?
Spending appropriation bills must start. Any bill that involves spending money by Constitution must start in the House.
Your attention please, the library will be closing in 13 minutes. Thank you.
Well, why don't we be a little more vague about it? With that, I want to close up. I know there's a lot here, and if you have questions, this is just, you don't have to, I just want to give you the basic overview of how this works. Some people wonder, how do people get on the ballot? Or they wonder, how does a bill become law? Is Doug Wardlow here?
No, he is on the way.
Okay.
He is caught in traffic.
He's caught in traffic? Doug Wardlow, do you want me to speak on his behalf? Or did you want to, or?
Sure, I would just like to point out that Doug really would like to be here. He was in a parade in New Ulm earlier today that started at about noon, and that parade finished. And he was actually in it with that guy, Nathan. And Nathan was a little ahead of Doug, and there was an accident in between them, and Doug got caught behind this accident.
Well, we got about 11 minutes, so let me say this.
If you wouldn't mind,
Sure.
can I just point out one other thing? You're
Yeah.
running for Senate.
U.S.
Senate.
Yep,
The process is about the same
yep.
in Washington as it is in St. Paul.
Yeah, the process is the same on the federal level for bills to make law as it is on the state level. Doug Wardlow is on his way here. I hope he gets here in the next 11 minutes. But I will say this. Doug is running for the Attorney General's spot. And I've been campaigning, I've been driving all over Minnesota for the last year. I've put 40,000 miles on my car in Minnesota, and I've heard Doug speak. I've lost count. Doug is running for the Attorney General's position. And I will tell you this right now, Doug will stand up for you. He will stand up. He will make sure that our laws are applied in accordance to the Constitution. He is very big on that. We have not had a Republican Attorney General 60 years?
46.
46 years. For 46 years, the Democrats have held the Attorney General's office. And now earlier when we talked about the statewide offices, we said, remember we touched on that, we said that the Attorney General is the top law enforcement officer for the entire state. That man or that woman decides what kind of legal action the state is going to take. How many attorneys work for the Attorney General? About 100?
Close to 200.
Close to 200. And for the last 50 years, what has happened with the Democrat Party is that they've turned the Attorney General's office into a political platform. They've turned it into, instead of doing what's right, in my opinion, and in many other people's opinions, instead of doing what's right for our state and passing laws in accordance to the Constitution, we've had Attorney General after Attorney General just get up and try to make political statements. Political statements. Folks, it's time that we have an Attorney General who's not going to play politics. It's time that we have an Attorney General that's going to actually stand up for your rights and fight for you. And I cannot think of someone, Charlene said that earlier today that I'm a fighter. Yes, I am. Sometimes that's one of my biggest weaknesses because I don't know when to stop. But I'll say this, Doug Wardlow, he is a pit bull. He is. He is. And when your back's against the wall and you want someone to defend you, do you want a poodle or do you want a pit bull? I want a pit bull. And that's Doug Wardlow. And I mean that in the sincerest sense of the word. If I had a problem and I needed someone to represent me or I needed someone to represent this state, he is my first and only choice. And I hope he gets here. He might get here after we close. If he does, it's really good for you. How many of you have met him already? How many of you have met him? Good. There should be some information out there for him. He is going to be running against, it looks like, how many of you have heard of Keith Ellison? Heard of Keith Ellison? Keith Ellison was a congressman. He's retiring from that. He is extremely radical. He has sided himself with the Antifa movement, and that seems to be the position that he wants to fight for. I don't know about you, but I think that the Attorney General should probably represent us and represent our state in accordance to the Constitution and not stand up for extreme groups like Antifa. Yeah.
Could I just point out one thing, and that's that if you have to, well, we'll be kicked out of the building at 5. If you have to leave, we're really sorry we weren't able to have Doug talk with you, but for those of you who stay, we'll find a tree with some shade, and Doug will be happy to talk with you for as long and answer whatever questions you have about the role of the Attorney General.
So is Doug already?
He's coming. He's in this area. We can.
He's almost here.
Doug also attended Beijing University. His wife is of Chinese ancestry, heritage, no?
Oh, Korean.
Korean, she's Korean. And he also has a beautiful family. The issues that are important to Asian Americans are close to his heart. Very close to his heart.
What's the question?
Yeah, is he already in the general election?
Is Doug is in, he will be in the primary. There's one other person that's challenging him.
There are two people who are running. One is 86, neither of which have law degrees or licenses to practice law.
You would,
I'll just say
what?
that.
I don't understand that. Why do people run for office when they don't have the basic qualification for it? Doug is qualified. Doug is an attorney. He's worked for the Alliance Defending Freedom. He's done a lot of really strong legal work. He's a conservative man, and he believes in freedom. And then, you know what? Here's the thing. I'll end with this on Doug. If I didn't believe in Doug, if I didn't think he was the best guy for the job, I wouldn't be up here talking on his behalf right now. I wouldn't. I would just have someone else get up and talk. But Doug is the right guy for the job. So, with that, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to